Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a somewhat long overdue vlog from your old buddy Gitbag the Great. I know. Wait, no, I did a vlog recently. God, fucking sorry. My brain is being a real shit stain at the moment. I'm sorry. I'm being rather stupid, but I thought, after doing my vlog of my holiday in Greece and seeing how well that did, I thought I'd do another vlog on a slightly different topic, this being much more about entertainment rather than, personal sort of life and style sort of vlogs. And it's about something that I did just before I went away to Greece. You see, some time back, I went to the local Odeon here in Brighton, and I went to see what was it? It was the new X-Men film, yes. And there were some rather rowdy kids in there. Me and my mate, we basically complained to the manager, and we said, look, our enjoyment of this film was clearly impacted. We would like it if we could have some conversation. They gave us free tickets, and so the next time I went to this Odeon, I went to see the new Warcraft film, which, as far as I'm aware, isn't being shown at that Odeon anymore. And I watched this new Warcraft film, and it got me thinking, has there really ever been a good video game film? And kind of, there hasn't really. And this film would really, for me, reinforce that, because it's a decently produced film that fails on a story front, and I think that's kind of happened with every video game throughout history. You see, the thing that defines video games from films is the fact that they are, by extent and purposes and by name in of itself, are a interactive media, and you can have this sort of mental interaction, this sort of emotional reaction to watching a film. But the thing is, with a video game, the larger part of your reaction and your emotional sort of gratification to it comes from your interaction with it, with your actual physical interaction with this medium. I wouldn't say that I would get the same sort of reaction of sadness from that famous death scene near the end of Gears of War 3. I won't spoil it for anyone who hasn't played that game. You'll know who and what I mean. To the tragic death of Mufasa in The Lion King. They're both tremendously sad occasions, but at the same time they affect you somewhat differently in different ways, because one is an interactive medium where you have at times cooperated with a certain character to achieve a physical aim, and the other is an instance where a character you have seen being developed but have not interacted with, he dies, and you have to build your reaction to that off of how you have been exposed to this character, or how this character has been written. And so, basing this discussion off of that fundamental point, that the two mediums of film and video games are diametrically opposed in how you emotionally react to them, I would say it's pretty much impossible to make a solidly good video game film. People always debate this, why we can't have a good video game film, and it's primarily because of this. I've seen good films about the culture or about the ethos of video games, like Tron, or what was the other one? Or a couple of other ones. The Wizard as well is one. But films actually based off of single video games. You've got your Far Cry's, you've got Blood Rain, you've got House of the Dead, you've got Warcraft, you've got several others, and they're all terrible. I mean, there are a few here and there that are like cheesy, or good, happy fun, like like the 1994 Street Fighter movie, or the 2010 Tekken movie. Stupid movie, terrible really, but still a lot of fun. And one I feel is quite underrated actually is the Prince of Persia movie that came out a few years ago. People always say that it wasn't that good. I think it was alright. It was entertaining. It wasn't the best film of all time, but it was entertaining enough. And when I think about good sort of, video game films, even though there really technically aren't any, my mind always comes to that Prince of Persia film, because it took the ethos and architecture and aesthetic of the Prince of Persia video game series and used that less as even just a framing device or as the central crux of the story, and instead used that as sort of like the decoration for a story of its own. And admittedly, the story that it did tell was a little bit weighed down. It wasn't the best told, and at times the acting did fall through a bit. But at the same time, they didn't make the connection to the video game the central crux of the film. And pretty much like 99% of the time, that's what you see happening in these video game films. And we see this happen in Warcraft, and it's just really clunky. It's not a boring film, I can say that. It's got a lot of action. The character development is quite snappy and quick and to the point. But by God, is it a clunky film. It's certainly faithful to the ethos, architecture and story of the first couple of Warcraft films, but at the same time it kind of falls flat on its face because it does so hard to stay faithful to that it can't really tell a story of its own. And because it can't really tell a story of its own that's more applicable to the medium of films and movies, it has to sort of then portray this story from the video games as faithfully as possible. And as we've discovered, the main draw of stories in video games is the interactivity, which films and movies just do not have. And as a result, because it's so stringently, adhering to the story of the Warcraft games, the Warcraft movie just dies, because even though its acting isn't that bad, even though it's got good action and it's got quite decent pacing actually, and the editing is alright actually, I thought as well. People criticise the editing, I thought it wasn't too bad, but it just falls so hard on its face because of the story. And the story in of itself isn't even technically that bad, but because it relied in the video games on being an interactive medium and being in an interactive narrative, you can't really replicate that in the flesh on film. You can use the universe and reference to events in the series to build a story, but if you build the story out of the story that you find in a video game, then it's just going to die. I mean, this is, of course, building your own story out of the ethos and sort of architecture of a narrative from a video game has been done before, and it doesn't always work. I'm not going to lie, the Alone in the Dark film was universally panned, and rightfully so. The House of the Dead films aren't very good, and the live action Legend of Chun-Li Street Fighter movie was horrendous, and those all tried to do what I just said. But there are examples of movies doing this, like the 1994 live action Street Fighter, or the 2010 Tekken, or Prince of Persia, who they're not really even that good films, but at the same time they are entertaining enough because they realise that the stories they're based off of aren't really applicable for a movie-based sort of medium. And so they try, to use the aesthetic ethos and sort of backgrounds of these characters, but try and build their own story out of that. And it doesn't work universally, of course it doesn't, it never will, but they're at least entertaining films because they recognise the source material isn't entirely applicable to the medium that they're being built into. And I feel this was very much the opposite with the Warcraft film. They tried so hard to stick true to the source material that they end up just collapsing head over heels into a pit of orc spears and just eviscerate themselves. I think it's different when you're adapting other kinds of mediums into a film, like the adaptation of a book into a film. You can kind of take liberties with that and still stay very faithful to the source material. But with a video game, it's very, very different. With, you know, a book and a film, you watch and read and listen to them, and you don't really interact anything else past that. With a video game, interactivity is the source, it is the core and the being of your enjoyment and emotional reaction to the story, and as a result, I don't really think you can ever really make a good video game film in any significant way. I think it's quite sad that this is the case, but it's the truth as far as I'm concerned, and I feel quite saddened by it, because I'd like to see a really good video game film someday, and I don't think, you know, there aren't any good ones. Like I said, I like the Tekken 2010 one, I like the 1994 Street Fighter film, I like the first Mortal Kombat film, not the second one, because the second one was awful, and I quite like the Prince of Persia film. You know, there are a few out there that are entertaining enough to be enjoyable, but they're not really what I would say are classics or great films. They might be classic in the sense that they are cheesily enjoyable, but at the same time you can understand that they're not really high quality entertainment. So I don't think we're really ever going to get a film like that, if you want to sort of stick adherently to the ethos and story of a video game. There might be a time when a part of a video game is turned into a good movie, and there have been times when there have been good animated video game movies, but I don't know, that's kind of a whole different kettle of fish, really, to be honest. And so I would say, just if you are ever thinking of proposing the idea for a video game movie, you just have to really think about, hey, how can we sort of interpret this story and this ethos and this architecture and this aesthetic into a film medium, and what kind of story can we build around that, if we can build one around that, without sticking too adherently to the movie's source material's plot. So yeah, I'd say it's pretty impossible, to be honest, but you know, I'm willing to see people try. Although, to be honest with you, after the, I'm not gonna lie, pretty boring results of the Warcraft film, I don't know if it can ever be done, really. I mean, people have been trying to do this for years and years and years and years and years. It has never really fully worked, so it may never ever be done. It's kind of, I mean, well, I was going to say it's kind of like making a good I was going to say it's kind of like making a good Fantastic Four film, although, to be honest, none of the Fantastic Four films have been fucking good. They've all been universally awful, but I don't know, you can at least try, can't you, hopefully. But the chance of it actually being a success is about as narrow as, I don't know, Bernie Sanders winning the next presidential election in the US. But yeah, who knows? Maybe one day we will see a good video game film. But until then, I suppose we'll have to stick with the Prince of Persia film. I mean, hell, it's a decent action and adventure film, so why not? But yeah, sorry, I just fancied making a sort of a different kind of video than usual. I don't know if you guys enjoy these kind of vlogs. If you do, let us know. I mean, the last vlog I did really well, so who knows, maybe this might be a sign of things to come. But I'm going to continue doing some gaming videos here and there. But yeah, just let us know what you thought of this. If you liked it, leave a like, subscribe, share it, whatever. If you didn't like it, tell me why, and inform me in a mature and sophisticated kind of way, and hopefully I'll be able to do better in the future. But I do hope you guys did enjoy it, or at least found this video informative. And as always, if you did, like, favourite, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, stay safe, have fun with whatever you're doing, don't do anything I wouldn't do, and until next time, I've been Gitbag the Great, and I'll see you guys on the battlefield.